Well, in terms of the number of fatalities we've seen over the last 2 days, it's growing that way. That is very unfortunate, and it's a situation that is outrageous and unacceptable. We have to find a way to dial this back down and have people recognize that these are peaceful protesters demanding their rights and demanding restoration of democracy. The way that the military and the police in Myanmar have pursued them with indiscriminate use of lethal force through, just shooting into crowds, it's unbelievable.
We saw today a flyover of military fighter jets, so that seems to be sending an even more ominous warning.
Well, this is a intimidation show by the Myanmar Air Force, basically reminding everyone that the military is around. What they're trying to do is they're trying to reinstill the level of fear that the Myanmar people had during the almost 5 decades of military dictatorship. When Myanmar was really strictly controlled by the military, there was no civil and political freedoms. It was one of the worst human rights abusing countries in Southeast Asia. And so they're trying to put that sort of pall, that sense of fear back into the people. And so far, the people are not accepting it, and they're going back on the streets and demanding their rights.
Yeah, because this is a group of young people who have known freedoms. It's this sort of balance, I guess, of these young people really just putting their lives at risk and whether they are going to get anywhere with this regime.
Well, that's a good question, but I think that they are very determined, and they have the backing of the larger Myanmar people, simply because everybody realizes that going back to a military dictatorship where rights abuses and corruption and an economic downturn are all in the cards is something that people don't want. This is their worst nightmare. They don't want to return to this kind of situation that they've known in the past and thought that they were done with.
How could Australia respond more effectively in a way that would have some impact?
Well, Australia, first and foremost, should end its relationship with this Burmese military. There is a aid program that the Australian government has been funding for a number of years. It's not going anywhere. It hasn't produced any results, and it's time to take the step to end that. But more than that, we need targeted economic sanctions looking at military businesses. There's a lot of companies that are controlled by the military, and there should be targeted sanctions against those companies and also their directors.
It needs a more coordinated effort than just one nation, and we're seeing even the ASEAN nations unable to come up with a coordinated response.
Well, that's right, and that's why I think countries like Australia and other countries are going to have to step up. The original idea was, okay, maybe ASEAN, being the frontline neighbors, could serve as a bridge to deal with the Myanmar military junta. But it's quite clear that the divisions in ASEAN are too deep to do that. And I think that we've pretty much hit a dead end with ASEAN, and it's time now for the U.S., Canada, Australia, the European Union, and others to really push forward.
Well, last week we saw one of our top defence men talk to a leading military junta member. That shows an approach of just keeping communication open. Do you think that is helpful?
Well, I don't think, unfortunately, that it really got anywhere. And the reality was that the next day it was on the front page of the government newspaper. So the government is using this for propaganda purposes, trying to tell the protesters that, hey, the world doesn't care about you, they're with us. And that's an unfortunate message to send. I think that, the government and the military should have been prepared with a statement really to come back, recognizing that there might be some sort of use of that call for propaganda purposes. But, they were caught flat-footed.
Do you think China could play a role in this this sort of terrible crackdown?
Well, I think China is primarily interested in stability and the economic benefits they can get from Myanmar. They had a good relationship with Aung San Suu Kyi and the elected government. And so it's not clear that they were in favor of this seizure of power by the Burmese military. I think that they have a role to play. But I think also that there's got to be more pressure placed on the Burmese military junta before we get to that point. We don't yet have enough leverage on them.
Yeah.
And I think that is the big thing that needs to be looked at now is how do we increase pressure to make them realize that they cannot continue down this path?
Phil, always good to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.